For this position
Right.
today, we are doing third base. So let's switch to the worst value. And again, these are guys who could have great seasons. We're not saying they're going, but it could be they're overhyped a little bit, and where they're going to get taken, you might have a better shot at getting someone else, not necessarily at third base, but across the league at that draft position. Who do you have for your worst value? I like this pick a lot. I'll tell you right now.
Sure. I do have Nolan Arenado, which it does kind of hurt me. I mean, I'm a Cubs fan and he's I'm the Cardinals, so it doesn't hurt me that much, but I'm a huge Nolan Arenado fan. Like, it's hard to say that as, a rival team, but I am a huge fan of him. And so it does hurt me to say this, but it feels like, so when he left Coors, there was kind of a dip in his production, right? Which we obviously knew was coming a little bit, but now it feels like there's that second dip or that second fall. And I think this one is a little more age related. The reason is his speed has fallen off. He was in the bottom 6% in speed. His defensive value went from the 96th percentile in 2022. This was a perennial Gold Glove winner at third base, to the 75th percentile in 2023. So a 20% difference between 2022 and 2023 and his defensive value. And so that to me that's a huge red flag, because there's got to be some age, something going on that's just not right. Maybe it was an off year, but that just tells me like something is not right with him. I don't expect the same type of year from him as we're used to seeing. His ADP is 98. I'm just not going to pay a top 100 pick for him. He's still capable. Sorry, go ahead.
No, and you were about to say this, that he's a guy who could get it done, but 33, 34 is what we talked about. Get it out a year early or rather than get out a year late, right? If he falls to you and you're at pick 110 and he's still there, okay, sure. You know what I mean? But where he's going right now, to risk that he might not have a great season, I don't think there's a big drop off between him and then the rest of those third basemen, the bottom tier for third baseman potentially this year. Another guy who I want to ask you about, because I wrote down Nolan, and before I get to my guy, this guy who I wrote down had a really off year last year by his standards, but maybe there's a bounce back in him. It didn't feel the same, and that's Manny Machado. Do you think it was a one-off, or do you think he's just not the same guy as he was?
Yeah, so I don't have Manny's numbers in front of me, but what I can tell you is it's kind of weird. It's literally every other year with him over the last 4 or 5 years. He has a really great season, and then he has a really bad season, and then he has a really great season, and he has it's like kind of bizarre how regimented that has been.
Yep.
And so if you believe in the superstitious kind of stuff, buy it, because this is the year that he's going to do well. And I do trust Manny a little bit more than I think I do Nolan. I think his underlying stuff still tells me that he hasn't fallen off. Like, I think it's pretty consistent with his career. So that's a good call out, though.
I mean, his average and his average, his on base falling off close to 50 points. The home runs were there. The production was down. Obviously, the team wasn't as good. He didn't steal as many bases. He also played a lot less games, or not a lot less, but like 10 less games, had still like close to the same number of plate appearances. So again, it wasn't like a crazy drop off, but for a guy also who's 33, 34 years old, you're looking at that and you're like, all right, this is more of an abnormal drop off, because the other years that you're talking about, okay, he went from batting 304 to 280 and then back up to 298 the next year. This is a bigger drop, dropping to 258. You know what I mean? Dropping to 319 on base, which is uncharacteristically low for him. So it seems like it was more of a drop off. And if you're looking at guys that maybe have those bigger names, like an Arenado, like a Machado, don't pay a premium for the name when the guy might not be the same as he was even 2 years ago. And like we said, maybe get out a year earlier than a year later, or maybe they're around later because enough people are looking at what we're looking at, and all of a sudden you get them as a steal. You know, that's a real possibility. And all of a sudden, one of those guys, a Nolan Arenado, a Manny Machado, still put up a 280 season with 25 homers and have like close to 100 RBIs, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, this was a steal. We got a steal in this pick. So I like that. Now, for my worst value, everyone's going to hate this, and I could be epically wrong on this because I'm taking a shot. This is what I do. But I just, for so many reasons, I can't. It's not that I don't like him. It's just that everyone else loves him way too much. And that's Royce Lewis. I just
don't talk to me. No, I'm just kidding.
Like, everyone is obsessed with him. What has he done? Just give it a year. Why do you have to be the first one in on him? You know what I mean? Like, okay, maybe he'll have the number 1 year of all third basemen this year. It's possible. I'm willing to concede that. But why should I jump on him right now when maybe I could just wait a year? Next year, okay, he's a top player, but it feels like he's going so early on the consensus because he's going to be great. The promise of him going to be great. And I get it. I just wanted to pull up the numbers here. In limited time, right? He's batted 300, hit 15 home runs, like in no games, right? He played 58 games and he hit 15 home runs, 52 RBIs. Like, he was incredible in the limited time he was in the majors. Sometimes that first full season, though, it takes an adjustment, and there's a second adjustment that comes. I mean, you've seen it so many times with young guys who in short stints at the end of the year come up and they go crazy. Gary Sanchez did it in his first year. I can tell you Gleyber Torres, right? And then their second year, there's just an adjustment period and there's slumps. He's still young. He's still going to have stuff to adjust to. To me, like, I just don't think, I don't want to take him at that spot where, I'd much rather take a Gunnar Henderson in a similar spot. That's just me.
And I think that's a good point. Although from what I see, and maybe you have a different ADP, I have Gunnar going about 20 picks higher than Royce.
Okay, yeah, so that makes sense to me. There we go. But yeah, I was looking at Yahoo, so I'm not sure what you're looking at now. But
yeah, I get it. And most of the experts that I listen to agree with you. This is where I'm going against the grain. I actually think most people agree with you that why pay the premium, not because of the player and even the sophomore slump, but the injuries. Like, he's had 2 ACL injuries,
right.
Like major knee injuries. So I'm
you buy the hype, and that's fine. I'm going to let you draft him because, and by the way, and you can clown me and tell me I'm an idiot when he has the best season of any third baseman. I read the hype everywhere. And sometimes with these guys, like even when Julio Rodriguez first came up, with all these guys, I was always like, all right, I want to see it first. And I know we've seen it with him, but you talked about Joe Adell earlier. There's sometimes it just doesn't, it doesn't click right away. Or even if it clicks right away, there's a little bit of a fall off that second year. And I don't know.
Yeah, I think a closer potential comp, and I'm going to knock on wood as I say this because I'm terrified of this happening, but he could be the next Byron Buxton, who just, Buxton had the ceiling of a top 10 player and just
of a Mike Trout, right? Tools wise. Yeah,
he really did. And he just could not stay healthy. And so that is my gut fear. But this is one of those plays to me. If you have drafted for safety through the first 4 rounds and you love your team and you know that you have a high floor, taking a guy like Royce makes a little bit of sense to me because it's just like this total, like, he could put you over the top. I don't use league winner a whole lot, but if you're getting him around pick 50 and he returns top 15 value, like that could be a league winner right there if you draft well up until that point and beyond. So
yeah, no,
again,
100%.
It's your cup of tea. I think that's a good pick for your worst value, but
yeah, it's a risk thing. And to me, there's a lot of risk for a guy who's already, people are just want to throw him in there as one of the top guys. And so you have to consider the risk.